thank you so much for being here. The dynamics is going to be, we're going to start talking about how to add value to the cup. Chris, where's your microphone? And I'm going to ask, of course, after starting the conversation, I'm going to ask Sherry and Morgan to give their perspective, more specifically in a cafe setting, on how to prepare espresso drinks and bring some value to what you do in front of the client. And then Sherry will be talking about her perspective as a Brewers Cup champion on filtered coffee and how you prepare for an audience or how you prepare coffee for your clients and then bring value to that. After that, you will be able to walk to the coffee shop and do a demonstration where we're going to be showing that on this TV screen. Now, we're gonna have to be loud because it's raining dogs and cats after 3 months. So, and if you are a cupper and you go on your Lené do Café, and then you actually smell, I think it's vial number 1, where it smells like earth, you can smell it right now. A apresentação vai ser feita em inglês. Para quem precisa de tradução, a gente tem os tradutores aqui, então pode colocar ou pedir para utilizar o fone, né, para entender a apresentação. A dinâmica vai ser mais ou menos assim. Nós vamos fazer uma pergunta para a Morgan, como que ela adiciona valor agregado na xícara através de um barista apresentando ao consumidor final, e a perspectiva da Sherry também com relação a cafés filtrados. E aí depois que elas explicarem o ponto de vista dela com relação a esse tópico, elas vão para a cafeteria, onde elas irão fazer uma demonstração tanto de café filtrado como café expresso. E a gente vai estar transmitindo a apresentação delas enquanto a gente tem um bate-papo aqui, nessa tela aqui atrás da gente. Beleza? Bom. Chris.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah?
Go for it.
Yeah, you say everything.
I said everything?
Yes.
Well, then start our conversation around the topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's can be a very nice conversation. I mean, when Ricardo mentioned about the quality on cup and how, for example, you brew a coffee, I kind of travel a lot in Europe, different markets, and I see everywhere different markets. For example, if I'm going to London to have a filter coffee, it's almost impossible. I need to go to very specific coffee shops to have this. In Scandinavian, every coffee shop I go, I have a filter coffee. And I remember talking to Ricardo about that a long time ago, about for the final consumer, identify all the flavors in a coffee, in an espresso. It's much more difficult than identify this in a filter coffee. So my question is a little bit more about how you see this difference between, you know, because in UK, if you ask for a filter coffee in like a random coffee shop, probably, Tasmania maybe can see that, they're gonna give you an Americano. So a coffee
in Australia, it's called long black.
Yeah, and it's terrible because the machine is dirty, and then they put a super hot warm water in that, and I have these questions a long time ago, how you can improve the quality if you serve Americanos instead of filters. So it's more about a comment, how you guys see this in your different countries. Just a view, an idea, how you see this in the country you live in.
Who wants to take a step?
I'll go. You know, it's very interesting in the U.S. Just as worldwide there are very, very different markets. Even in the U.S., there is a lot of regionality for how coffee is experienced and what expectations are going to be in coffee shops. One of the things, I think I'm answering this correctly, but one of the things that I've always found most helpful, especially when you're getting in customers with varying expectations, is really focusing on curating the experience that you're giving to a customer, because oftentimes they'll come in and just order a coffee, and that could very easily mean an espresso, it could mean a filter, could mean an Americano, it could be many, many different things. And so from a barista perspective, I view it as my role to be the communicator of figuring out what they're actually looking for and not making assumptions based on where we are or based on what my expectation of what a coffee is. And kind of similarly, also when we're speaking specifically to espresso, which is a very different, of course, flavor profile and experience than coffee, it's my job to learn where they are currently in coffee and build their hospitality experience around that. So whether that is describing the coffee in ways that they'll be able to understand versus ways that I usually speak about it, that's the main thing. So for me, it's like if someone approaches and I'm pulling an espresso, perhaps I'm not describing it as being, it's 60% dark chocolate and it's like there's like lemon acidity, because that's going too deep too quickly. It's about meeting them where they are, and perhaps it's just a chocolatey espresso, and that's enough. And so I think that's really is meeting people where they are in their coffee experience.
And that's really important, because if you never walk into a specialty coffee shop, which I've seen this happen before, where I'm new to it and I'm walking into a coffee shop and I see and I look at the menu and I even know how to say those words, macchiato, cappuccino, whatever it is, right? So it is okay not to know. We have to create an environment where people are coming in, like you said, Morgan, and then meet them where they are, because that might be their first or initial opportunity to really dive into what specialty coffee is. So curating that experience for the client really adds a lot of value. And most of the time, it's not even tied to the coffee itself. It's tied to that experience that person had. That's adding value, not in the cup itself, which you ultimately will actually reflect in the cup, but it's in the experience that customer comes in. So there are different ways to add value to the cup, right? And you're talking about espresso versus filter, and Sherry is in a totally different market than the U.S. market. And I recently came from Southeast, from the Asia Pacific, and I was blown away by the level of customer service, or like friendliness and welcoming. They're always there, very cheerful, and it's more, and you find more filtered coffee there in Asia than you find perhaps in Australia or other markets, like in UK market, for example. So Sherry, my question to you is, how do you add value to the cup, taking into account your respective geography?
I'm from Taiwan, and I will say in Asian culture, we don't have much long espresso culture. We also drink filter coffee. So we learned a lot about filter coffee from Japan. Yeah. So in Asian culture, like Thailand, China, Malaysia, we all learn about the knowledge from Japan. So we have a lot of company will develop or create a new coffee dripper or a new kettle just because of this. Yeah, and some people will ask they just know geisha in Asia, because this is the most luxury coffee in the world. So they just know geisha. This is very, very expensive and very delicious coffee. So some people will just walk in the cafe and then just order, do you have a geisha? And if you don't have geisha, that is not specialty coffee. Yeah, so people will just ask about this. But as the normal customer, they will consider about the price. If you are just the beginning to want to try the specialty coffee, I will recommend like Brazilian coffee. Yeah, that is the very easy to drink and easy to get. We can drink every day, and then every cafe can provide this kind of coffee as well, and espresso as well. So as a barista, I will try to let my customer, if the customer just beginning want to try the specialty coffee, I will let them try the very basic coffee like Brazilian coffee, and then they start to they can drink the black coffee without milk, and then we can level up like Ethiopia coffee that will brings out a higher acidity and more complex, more floral, something like that. But I think how to put more value in the coffee, I think is the customer service. Yeah, because a lot of people, they do not know about what is the geisha flavor. They just know, oh, this is the most expensive. So I want to get more about the customer service from the barista. Yeah. So even your coffee is not good, but they can get the best customer service from the barista. That is the good coffee to them. So I would say when I train in the junior barista, I always talk about you have to give the best customer service to your customer. Like you need to take care of what you're gonna what kind of coffee you want to drink, and like you can have a good conversation from the customer, and then what kind of like the customer want to drink more bitterness or more higher acidity, then you can customize for them. They want to receive this feeling from the barista. So I would say the barista, the most important job is you need to give the very touching feeling and very well customer service to the customer. Yeah.
That's so cool, Cherry. Thank you for explain to us a little bit about your country. I think this is the beautiful about the coffee, right?
Right.
You travel regions and then you see different ways to drink coffee. Not so long a time ago, I was in Holland, and every roastery, every coffee shop I visit, they do blends. And for example, again, if you look in Scandinavia or UK, or maybe in German-speak countries, blend is something that is less status. You blend coffee when maybe the quality is not that good. In Holland, they put like a beautiful natural Ethiopia with a beautiful washed Ethiopia and create a blend. And I have been there for like 5-6 years, and I never understood that. So I start to ask the guys, why about the blends? Why you guys blend coffee? And the answer was, it's just because the cultural. Since 100 years ago, the first roastery started to do blends, and they keep doing. So I think, Felix, I think I have a question for you, because it's very nice what Cherry say about the status, about the filter coffee in Taiwan. I think it's more about experience. I think customer service is something that everybody agree. You know, you need to have experience. But how is the status? Because I know you are a champion in roastery, but you have a roastery as well, and you have a company. How is the status in your country between the espresso and filter coffee? Because in the final, is a status like perception, right? The filter maybe have been brewed 2 hours ago, and the espresso is something more fresh. I just want to hear from you what you have in experience.
So well, it's kind of very mixed coffee culture in Austria. We have this old coffee house tradition, which you may notice in the internet from Vienna coffee houses. We are very influenced by Italian roasteries and coffee shops. And there are a few very nice third wave coffee shops, as we call them. So, thinking of filter coffee, you can get filter coffee in these shops. That's it. Because I think, I can't say the percentage, but this milk beverage coffee based on espresso is still most consumed coffee in Austria. Then followed by espresso and lots of lungos. So this is kind of where I see the potential to filter coffee. So I'm running a market booth every Saturday on a farmer's market, and I try to tell people that filter coffee is very good. People just throw away all the filter equipment the last years because the industry showed up with fully automatic machines for your home, so you can perfect espresso at home and so on. So, and filter coffee was actually badly roasted because it was like dark roast to hide some defects. It was cheap, so people have not a good opinion about filter coffee. So now we try to tell them that filter coffee is really good and can not like replace espresso, but it can add you a brilliant cup of coffee to your coffee life. So, because that's most thing that people are, but it's not tasting like espresso. Yeah, it is not. It's adding something to your life. So what we do is kind of let the people taste our simple batch brew because we are kind of out of a camper van working. And the most comments are like, oh, that tastes like tea. So, yeah, this is kind of the real taste of coffee. So this is kind of procedure we have to do, and it's nice to see that even if the people first react like in a weird way, like, oh, wow, that's watery, it doesn't taste like intense like a coffee we used to. It's nice to see when they come back and give you, yeah, kind of a nice feedback. So, you know, that cup last time, I didn't like the texture, but it was so good. It was not bitter at all. So, and yeah, so this is kind of happening now, but it is still a long way to go.
Nice.
So I think that it's all part of like, it's less more about the coffee and more about the customer, right? So customer experience, customer service, customer education, right? Changing the perception. Oh, this is pretty much an espresso culture, but we need to change how people actually perceive coffee in this market. So education is very important to say, hey, there are other ways to drink coffee, not just espresso-based beverage, but you can also drink it in a filter situation. So it's all important. I think this is like so valuable because a lot of people think that's just like, oh, okay, as a producer, perhaps just like, oh, I just sell my green coffee, buy my green coffee, and that's pretty much it. And then the importer, exporter, maybe they're doing the same thing, and they're not engaged in the level of helping their clients to educate or even talk to their clients. And then the roasters just, I just want to roast my coffee here and sell it and move on. But it's more than that, right? I think that when it comes to customer service, if they don't have, the customer experience or customer service education, if they do not have a good experience when they walk in, they're never coming back. And they're like, why am I going through this hassle if I just can order online and get a bag of coffee at my house and then just drink it in there? And at that point, they're not even looking who is roasting their coffee. They might be getting the cheapest coffee available in the market, right? So then we're not really doing a service to the industry. You're just like being in there doing whatever and one more brand of coffee in the market, right? I think that going to Diego, in Spanish, English, going to Diego, Diego comes from origin as well. And it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different perspective in terms of like customer or expectations, price expectations, value expectations. Diego works for a company called Amor Perfecto in Colombia, which is, to me, is probably in terms of volume, is the company that is doing the most amount of impact perhaps in Colombia. And from your perspective, having all these different, things and being a Colombian company, working for the Colombian market, what is the recipe there? Origin country, higher quality coffee, adding value to the chain, to the cup.
just adding that Diego as well has his own coffee shop now, right, in Huila?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Well, that was like something that I was going to say. Having my own cafe now makes me think like adding value to the coffee or to the cup makes more sense for me. My coffee shop is located in Huila, in the middle of Huila, in a very small town where people think that they don't deserve a coffee shop like my coffee shop. Because they think, wow, you've been like World Barista Champion, you should take your coffee to outside Colombia or maybe to big cities because maybe they will appreciate more your coffee. And I say, no, the opposite. I'm here because I need to add value to coffee and I need to show you what coffee is and how coffee tastes when it's fresh, when it's good, when it's well prepared. So I'm trying to educate customers, which is really hard for me because in Colombia we drink a lot of like filter coffee, but in a very different way. So we drink a lot of commercial coffee, which is very strong, dark. You need to use sugar or milk. So talking about like filter coffee for them is like, oh no, it's too watery. Talking about espresso is too strong. So it's like a good thing for me to like start a good culture for like people in Garzon where the cafe is like with a good experience, with a good place, with a good coffee, and with a good customer service, make them feel or live a coffee experience. So showing them how they can really drink a good cup of coffee every day without going outside Colombia or without going to big cities. It's just around the corner you will find a really good coffee. So it's been hard for me, but now I have different customers, like regular customers that really understand what espresso is. So sometimes they drink an espresso, sometimes they drink coffee with milk, or they try like filter coffees, and they bring their family to try the coffee. So now I'm doing just wash coffee for them because naturals are like quite strong. So if I do a natural, it's because they already tried the wash, but I cannot serve them the natural because they think it's something wrong with the coffee. Or sometimes they ask me for an espresso because espresso is quite like less price than the other drink. So I ask them, are you sure you want to try an espresso? An espresso is a very concentrated drink, which is good, but maybe it could be too strong for you to start. Maybe you should drink an Americano or a latte or a cappuccino. I just try to guide them about the menu. So I have a very small menu where I try to don't confuse them. Just espresso, Americano, and cappuccino. Hot chocolate, chai, and just limited of drinks because it's easy for me for them to understand what it's all about. So yeah, it's been a good experience. I've been working in Australia as a barista, which is like totally different experience. So everyone is talking about espresso there, coffee with milk, and like no one's talk about like filter coffee as much. And now in Colombia, I was a barista in Bogota, which is different too. Now in Garzon, which is different experience. So me as a World Barista Champion working in my own cafe in a small town makes more sense.
That's amazing, man. Imagine if you live in Garzon, in Huila, and you're just walking around the corner, and then you found a coffee shop that owned by one of the champions in the world. I mean, well done, man. Congratulations. I think people are going to find because...
I'm coming to Pitalito in November. I'm coming to Garzon to have a coffee from you.
And I think what's beautiful is that what Diego say as well is because I never meet people as proud as Colombian people about coffee.
And we think here in Brazil that we're very proud about our coffee heritage, but wait until you go to Colombia and really talk to people there. It is part of their DNA. It's incredible. I'm proud to be Brazilian and to see how much Brazilians love coffee. I think just Colombians in general, they take it to the next level. It's really amazing. And you having this opportunity to come back home as a world champion from Origin, and then after several years that nobody from Origin had won, and then come back, and then being in Bogota, which is the capital city, and then going back to your own people in Garzon and serve coffee in the level that you're serving, I think it's like, man, there's nothing more amazing than that, really, to be able to bring value to the cup at origin, in your hometown, in your place, with your people. Diego, as well as families, a coffee producing family in Colombia, produce amazing coffees there. And congratulations, man. I'm happy for you. If there is anything that we can do to help you, let us know. Thank you so much. Now, shifting to tasting it and how important tasting coffee, how important tasting descriptors, which is something that everybody talks about, and being accurate about those and do justice to the coffee that you're analyzing. How do you think that that is important, and how do you think that that contribute to bring value to the cup, Julien?
So I think that taste descriptors and flavor notes are a very kind of interesting subject and obviously very important. And I've gone on a long journey in my tasting journey. I started working as a barista and started cupping and fell in love with tasting coffee and, you know, matching the flavor notes on the bags and tasting different, you know, coffees from different countries of origin and processes. And now moving into a role as a coffee sensory educator, it feels very important to you know, talk about flavor notes as, yes, being accurate to the coffee and giving the coffee justice, because that's so important. And also kind of uplifting everyone in what they taste, because everyone's palates are different. And, you know, I'm going to taste different things that maybe you taste, or Felix tastes, or, you know, everyone tastes, because of the foods I ate growing up, or like where I was raised. And it's really important to be inclusive when we talk about flavor notes and affirm, while also making sure that the flavor notes and descriptors that we're giving are accurate and describe the coffee in a way that uplifts it and respects it. I think that resources like flavor wheels and tasting sheets and, you know, not just the SCA form, but all the ones that exist out there are so important. And just cupping and tasting coffee in general. I think in the US, it's sometimes difficult if you know, the barista role is usually like how people start working in coffee. And I mean, not always, obviously, but it's sometimes difficult to have access to resources to start learning how to taste. But I think I found so much magic in, you know, being a barista and sharing that experience with customers and encouraging customers to taste different coffees and explore their flavor palettes. I worked at a lot of shops. You know, my first job was at Starbucks. And it's like a lot of people really want that like dark roasted coffee, but it's really interesting to like, you know, help a customer work from only tasting the dark roast, only wanting the dark roast, but then be like, oh, maybe I'll try that like wash Brazil, like, and you know, or like then move on to like the natural Ethiopian or like the anaerobic Colombian, and it's just. I think that tasting coffee is obviously something that everyone in the industry does. It's very important, and yeah, I love it.
This is great, and I think that when you're talking about being, when we're talking about being accurate, but also being mindful of that people from different backgrounds and different sensory backgrounds, they have different experiences when they are tasting that coffee. Asian folks are just so much like the layers of flavors that you find on their culinary and their experience is so much different than anywhere else in the world. I'm like, I think I'm in love with Asia. I'm thinking about in the future retiring, moving to Asia because it's so much, it's incredible. But then it's totally different experience from someone in the south of the U.S. or even like in the Northeast or from Vienna or Colombia or Brazil. It is important as well to respect people in terms of making descriptors not so complicated or making more accessible or understandable, because sometimes I feel like people describe coffee and they're so specific, or they come up with such a different descriptor or a unique descriptor that really the folks coming in and tasting coffee in your place, they don't really understand. They don't even having the they're not trained, or they don't have the understanding of what you're saying there, right? How important do you think it is for people to really have descriptors, or when they're talking to the clients, that are actually accessible for people that are not as trained as someone behind the bar?
Yeah, that's a great question. I worked at a shop where we had a decaffeinated coffee on all the time, and we had the flavor notes listed for the coffee, and one of the flavors was blueberry. And that's a pretty classic tasting note that people get tripped up on a lot. And so I had many conversations talking to people being like, it's more of an essence of blueberry, or like what you would think a blueberry might taste like, and kind of, I think it's, people taste coffee, people start to taste coffee and they're like, oh, this is coffee. And, this tastes like coffee. And I think, when you start to be like, okay, well, what does this coffee like remind you of? Or like, what is a food maybe that you ate that maybe like reminded you of this, or like has the same, essence of that. And, but I think it's definitely, when we're talking about putting flavor notes on a bag, I worked briefly as a roaster, and I, had the experience of putting notes on a bag. And I think when you're doing that, you're not only trying to connect to the consumer and give them kind of an idea of what they're spending their money on, but you're also trying to sell the coffee, and you're trying to move the coffee, you're trying to do justice to the producer. And so I think it's very important to be accessible when we're talking about flavor notes. And I think, like, obviously, like, every once in a while you're gonna be like, oh, like, that tastes like marmalade, like orange marmalade or something like that, and it's gonna be this kind of outlier. But I think in general, keeping it simple and keeping it easy to digest is the best way to go.
Diego?
Sorry, I just
Thank
want to
you.
add something about this topic, is that part of the experience we can give to the customers is leave them to interpret the coffee as they want. So I just want to offer them.
Thank you for that. Really, this is something that people need to hear. Thank you for that.
I just want to give them a good balance, nice acidity, sweet, and a good bitterness. And I just leave them to drink the coffee as they want. Because I'm creating, or the baristas, we are creating a limitation. So they drinking a coffee without like thinking, I cannot find the blueberry, cannot find the fruits, the acidity, the barista told me. So they did not enjoy the coffee. They worry about flavors, and if they don't find the flavors, they think they're not good on drinking that coffee.
It's great because sometimes you're thinking that we're doing coffee for coffee people. When we forget that our biggest audience is not coffee people. It's not a competition. We forget, people forget about that. Hey, I'm here to make coffee for my clients. My clients are not coffee competitors. They're not coffee pros. They're not coffee experts. They just want to come in here and get a good cup of coffee and enjoy their experience. So it's good to say that because people forget that.
Yeah, but it's nice as well because they are champions.
Exactly right.
And I think when you compete, for example, Felix, maybe not you because the roaster, but when you compete in sensorial, that you need to, you present an espresso and you need to say about the body, the texture, the aftertaste. But you, in some point, you need to decide, right? Should I say sugar cane or should I say peach? Because it's a judge sitting in front of you that maybe he never tasted a sugar cane before. You know, sugarcane don't grow up in Sweden, right? So I think it's nice as well. What I read about when you say that, Diego, that's so nice because we have an offer list, right? As importer in Europe, we need to have an offer list so everybody can read the tastes. And we try to do the same, very basic lines, because otherwise we're gonna, you know, we need to be more democratic on the flavors, because if you put much more complex, the effect is gonna be like people's gonna go out instead of come in.
Right. True. Yes, it's true.
Like they get afraid about coffee, so we are making their life even more difficult.
Exactly
Instead of
right.
like getting them closer, so we just like showing them, oh,
Yeah.
I'm the guy that talk about flavors. So it doesn't have to be like that. Even in
Right.
competition, so they change the rules now. So
Yep.
there is something that calls taste experience according to the judge experience.
nice.
It's not like very precise. Of course, we talk about flavors, but sometimes we forget that we are serving coffee to a human.
Yes.
Someone that is having a good day or a bad day, or someone that needs a good coffee and just think about things.
So true.
Yeah, so just like, this coffee has 100 flavors. If you don't find it, so don't come back.
So true. I remember when I was a Brewers Cup judge in the U.S. And from time to time, I used to go to coffee shops. And the first thing I did when I walked in and I looked to see if anybody in there, I knew anybody in there that knew me. Because I didn't want to go in there for them to brew coffee for me, Ricardo, the judge. I wanted to go there to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And it's totally different experience. So I just wanted to get a cup of coffee. I didn't want to be served as a Brewers Cup judge, right? And even coffee people sometimes, they don't really want to be pampered. They just want to get a cup of coffee and they enjoy their coffee in there. And I'm sure you more than anybody else, because who you are and what you have achieved, you know, I feel like people are always trying to impress you with whatever drinks that they have. And it's very hard sometimes because you just want to have a good cup of coffee, right?
Yeah, on my cafe, so we used to like do the filter coffee on the table. So I just tried to explain them about how to brew the coffee in a better way, like what water is, the temperature, grind size, the ratio, those kind of things which are important to make a coffee. So, but they were waiting for me to say or to create an expectation about flavors. I just served the coffee and I just like left the coffee on the table, just enjoy the coffee and interpret it as you want. So just have fun.
That's great. I love that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to ask Morgan and Sherry to go to the coffee shop. Bye. And then we're going to transition to Q&As while they're doing a demonstration on the bar. So you guys can go. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you guys need to let them know that they're going on their way. Igor. So continue on our conversation here. Want to open questions for the audience. Anybody would like to ask any questions? Hold on a sec.
I would like to talk to Diego more because of being a producer country. Selling coffee for me is very difficult to sell a coffee like a unique lot. They are talking about, Sherry said, I would recommend the people to drink some Brazilian coffee. I would recommend Colombian anaerobic. But for us, it's all Brazilian, it's all Colombian coffee. And we can talk about the regions, we can talk about terroir, but in São Paulo, at least, I see people selling varieties. You enter a coffee shop and the barista says, oh, you want to drink the Bourbon or the Catuai? Like that means something in the cup. But to me, it doesn't taste anything like. It doesn't matter what the variety is. So I'd like to hear from Colombia, and if you would like to join the conversation, how can we talk about the cup experience besides varieties in our countries that we are not able to sell, like natural Ethiopian versus washed Costa Rica?
Well, I think the coffee experience, of course, is coffee, but I think it's more than just one variety or one process. So we need to sell a whole packet, which is the coffee, a good flavor, a good history about the coffee, and also to try to connect the customer to what I'm doing and what I'm serving to him. So, I mean, doesn't matter if I talk about the best quechua in the world, but if they don't have a good experience talking to you or the flavor is not the best, so nothing's gonna happen. So it's more about like understanding the coffee you're serving, what the variety of the flavors can be, but also it's more about how you connect the customer to the final drink and how you connect yourself as well with them and try to sell not just one coffee or one coffee. It's just like try to sell an experience and make him to come back to you and try the other coffees you can have in your cafe.
I think just adding on to what Diego is saying, in Brazil, for example, and you know that better than I do, there are different regions, and there's a lot of different regions, and every region here has their own terroir. I think, you know, because of the limitations that we have, that we cannot serve coffees from other countries here, it's really showing the diversity that you can find in Brazil alone, right? You can come here to Anderson in Alta Mogiana and have a coffee that, in my opinion, several times when I come and I cup them, they have profiles of coffees from Colombia or even like profiles of coffee from Ethiopia or from Africa. I've had coffees here that taste like Kenya's. So, and then you go to Elder, that is a neighboring farm, and his coffees will be like chocolate or have like hints of like citrus on the acidity. So you can showcase the differences and also the wide range of profiles you can find. You go to Espírito Santo and you have a totally different profile than you have from here. You go to Chapada de Minas and you go to Bahia, Piatã, and it's a totally different profile. So I think that when you have that limitation that you cannot have something from outside, is really showcase what Brazil, you know, has to offer as a whole, because there's a lot of different. And in Colombia,
we
it's
have
the
more
same way.
than 23 states producing coffee.
Exactly right. It's how Colombians, they have been able to really push forward coffees there. Is showcase the diversity that there is. In Colombia, from Nariño to Huila to Antioquia
even
to
in the
Tolima.
same region, the
Even
cup
the same
profile
region.
could be so much different, south to central.
And honestly, it would be great to have coffees here from Ethiopia, but the question is, do we really need it, right? I don't know.
Just to add as well, I remember from one trend we have in Europe 2-3 years ago was about the tabi, a variety from Colombia. Everybody wants to have tabi. And of course, it's not everybody, it's not every coffee that's tabi is good. So I think in the most important as well is not about this as a yellow bourbon. I remember when I started to work with coffee, I have some clients that's, oh man, you need to find some yellow bourbon for me because they are very good on espresso. No, it's something that you learn, maybe from your grandfather, but things change. Maybe, you know, maybe other varieties is better. So I think it's more about the flavor than the variety, much more. Because you can have Obata, you can have Tabi, you can have Rudan Sudam, SL28, but if it don't taste good.
Elder? Chris?
Talking about what we were talking in the beginning, about the customer's experience, I want to hear a little bit about you. In your countries, what is more important for the clients? The score of the coffee, talking about cupping sheets, or the description? Because we can have an 85 points coffee that it's a good score, but it's not so high. But the clients must like it so much with the high intensity of body or sweetness or something like that. And I want to know a little bit about what your clients think about score, the punctuation of the coffee, and about the description of the coffee. Thank you.
So I can talk for myself in this case as a roaster. I put sometimes the number of the score on the bag because I have different groups of clients. So I'm in a city 1 hour away from Vienna, and it's countryside. So on the farmer's market, people come there and they want to have a coffee that's not bitter, that's not sour. So they want to have coffee to drink without thinking. Some of them are really interested, and some are really completely into coffee, and they want to see, oh wow, that point, interesting, because I'm totally into tasting, and they know that I'm Q grader, so they want to know more, learn. But it's a kind of few percentage. So for the Austrian market, I would say I don't need the numbers. It's only about, is it espresso, or even more basic, is it a blend, is it Arabica or Robusta? So this is really basic. For international shipping, which increased in the last year, I have to kind of do the numbers. But to be honest, I will reduce it in future because people are going for big names, are going for big numbers. And I got on Instagram a direct message the other day, like, you know, what's your recipe for this coffee? Because I didn't get the flavor, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm doing like 18 grams to 300 mils. I like very standard recipe because we can't fool around with lots of recipes because we have a lot of coffee. So, well, I tried several times and I wouldn't give it 89. So, okay, well, that's a number. Are you a Q grader? Or, no, but I've done that experience. So people are judging coffees or even don't buy coffees because of these numbers. And that's not fair to the coffee or to the producer because these numbers are kind of scored in a situation like via protocol, but it's more. So coming back to the Q, I had a very nice Q instructor when I did this. And the first thing he said to us was, I'm telling you, be fair to the coffee. Don't be too picky. Accept the coffee as it is and get the flavors. And of course, there is a protocol you have to follow, but be fair to the coffee because it's about people too. There are people behind this coffee. So that's what I try to give to my clients too. So I will remove the numbers because I'm really kind of bored by getting questioned, why is this like this point and this point? I said, do you like the coffee or not? I mean.
Nice. Sorry, this is so funny because if you go for wines, for example, and they have scores. So good wine maybe is 84 points of 100, and so on. But no one talk about scores in wine. The sommeliers do that. In the coffee, it should be the same. The Q graders that communicate with the origin should be talk about scores. But I really recommend my team, for example, that sell coffee in Europe, never mention scores. Because we have examples that the client give 89, we 87. The coffee arrival, 86, I send to him and say, whoa, man, what's happened? I pay a coffee for 89. They say, no. You score 89. So
True.
Yeah.
It is true, and I think that where we are as an industry now is that scores, numbers, they just mean one more thing. Before, it's been so disappointing to see, for example, big names in the industry buy coffee only based on the score. And what happens is like, okay, so I'm just gonna go back to my producer that spent a whole entire year preparing, taking care of the coffee, harvesting properly, post-harvest is done impeccable, milling, everything is done really well, and I'm gonna go back to him right now and say you're not buying his coffee after all this effort just because now it's scoring half a point, 2 point, 1 point less. I'm like, this is not even just. So last year, I don't know if some of you guys are here, I did Julio from DOCA asked me to do a cupping here in town for about 20 people. At the end of the day, 30 showed up. And all I did is, I got coffees from like 5 or 6 different countries. that we buy on a regular basis for Ally. I knew our scores, but we are, like Chris mentioned, we're trying to avoid to give a number, just because it's not a fair way of really selling, buying or selling in most cases. So then I go in and I bring 5 or 6 different origins, five different processes, and so on. And I ask them to put on the table coffees from Brazil that they scored for the local competition, coffee competition. So I go in and I put it in there. I know the scores, and I knew some of the score sheets from them from the competition. And at the end, we start talking about individual coffees. I had coffee from Colombia, I had coffee from Ethiopia, I had coffees from all over the place. And the winning coffee here, I think, was like an 88-point coffee based on the judges' scores. And I put in literally an 86-point coffee from Ethiopia, a washed grade 2, 86-point Ethiopia, next to that coffee. And this is why I don't believe only in a score system. They all scored that coffee over 90 points. In fact, a lot of the cuppers, which they are great cuppers, and I know all of them, they're incredible cuppers, they said, this is the best coffee I tasted all year. And to us, is a simple grade 2 washed Ethiopian coffee. So the point being is, whatever is 86 or 84 or 85 or 88, depending the coffee, depending the region, but depending the process, depending everything can vary. And usually, people in Colombia and people in Brazil or people in different producing countries, all they taste is coffees from their origin. How do you rely a trading system or buying and selling system only based on scores, when actually origin doesn't have access to all the different origins to be able to calibrate properly and understand what it means? An 86 from Colombia versus an 86 from Brazil, or an 86 from Ethiopia versus an 88 from Brazil. So what does that mean, right? And that's why I think that the SCA or other associations are really taking it to heart, because we cannot rely coffee trading anymore just based on a score. I don't think it tells us the whole story. I don't think that really represents producers very well. I don't think it even represents the trading industry, the buying, the importers, exporters, roasters. I don't think it represents everyone very well, and definitely needs to be reconsidered. And I think, as you heard from someone that, like Felix and everyone here, we can't rely, and he's shying away from that model because he knows it doesn't tell the whole story, right? It's not fair. So I don't know if that kind of helps you, but.
Yeah, it was very nice question, but very complex as well, because score is, I mean, when I buy coffee from Fernando, for example, or I buy coffee from Diego in Salvador, or Diego from Costa Rica, I talk to them because I have contracts. So, but my client come to me and talk about profiles. I want to have a coffee like that. I don't have clients, of course, not too much, that come and say, I want to have 84 points. No, they come and say, I have to have this profile, and then contract the coffee, base it on the profile, and put the score on the contract. Because I'm contracted 84 points, I want to pay for 84 points. Just about that. But, I mean, maybe 2% of our clients come to us and say, I want to have 87 points from Brazil.
Not that it doesn't exist, but they don't come asking for that. Yeah. Any more questions?
Hey, everyone. I think that this is a really nice talk, because in Brazil, I don't know how it's in Colombia, but producers, they came from a place that they didn't have any knowledge about their coffees. So they start to learn, and in a different way that's Cado. And now they are in a phase that they want to know the score. And we know that coffee, as you are talking, is much more than the score itself. It's about the profile and the characteristics of that coffee. How do you see that, and what we could do to create more this awareness for the growers that coffee is not only related with the score. This is 87 point. How could we bring this awareness that's much more? You are the customers. You are looking for profiles. You are looking for characteristics of the coffee, not only for the score, but for the growers, they are still very attached to the score. How could we go for the next step and talk about profile and not only score?
Well, first thing I would do, I'll give the word. When you talk to that producer that says, my coffee scored this point. My coffee scored 87 points. That's goal, 85. And you ask them back, how do you know that? How do you know that? Do you think that somebody else outside is going to actually score the same as you? Well, I don't know. Well, of course you don't know. It's all subjective, right? So it's like, listen, the global coffee, production is like this. Different places have different terroirs. Different coffees taste differently based on processing. You explain, of course they're not, producers are smart people. You walk them through, it's part of educating them in how they actually need to view themselves. It used to be back in the days that I used to go visit a coffee farm, and then we would ask, how is your coffee this year? How was the production? How is it tasting? And they would say, I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, my coffee is the best coffee in the world. I'm like, well, see, if you don't know, if you haven't tasted, how do you know your coffee is the best coffee in the world? Well, because I grew it. Well, exactly. Right? How can you put a value into that? Right? But it's part of it is kind of educating the producers as well and keeping their expectations level, grounded, so they understand that, hey, this is a big world, and you're just one more in this whole entire beautiful world, right?
I am not a Q grader, and to me, the scores, when people say oh, this is above a 90, I kind of understand what that means. But as someone who loves to taste coffee, I've tasted many different kinds below specialty, and I think that ultimately there's a home for every coffee, and especially in the US, where a lot of people just go through drive-through and get, their McDonald's or their Dunkin' Donuts every day, and that's their coffee and how they like it. But then there's also the extreme to where people are only drinking coffees that score above a 90. And I want to get Q certified someday. I want to understand kind of the scale of it and the, calibrate and be communicative in that way. But I think that, at least as a consumer, as someone who grew up in the US and grew up drinking coffee in all its different ways, every coffee deserves to be respected, and every coffee deserves to be consumed. And that's bottom line, yeah.
It happens to me a couple of weeks ago. I set up the table for one of my customers, and we were cupping some wash coffees and some naturals, and I put on a natural process, like a ping bomb natural process, and it was a 79 points for him. So my coffee wasn't special for him, just because he did not have experience on natural, and just because he doesn't like naturals. But he didn't count that coffee was well picking, well processed, well fermented. Everything was good process. But just because he doesn't like the coffee, he said my coffee wasn't good enough just because of him. So that's not fair with the coffee and with the whole process. That's as a producer, because I'm producing some of my coffees, but I'm trying to show also to the customers, but I never talked about numbers. even me, I don't have any certification, any SCAP or cook grader, nothing. I just try to teach people how to like enjoy each coffee the best as they can on a good experience.
No, that is great, and ultimately, that's what we need to get back to as an industry. We need to get back to coffee, and I say this at Ally a couple of years ago during the pandemic. We were like looking inside at our company, and we have like literally like almost two divisions inside the business. Like we had a specialty division, we had a commercial division, and I started pushing it and saying, listen, guys, we are a coffee company. The more coffees we can sell with a value added for everyone in the chain, the better off we are as a coffee company. If we keep on pushing the envelope and just saying specialty 80-something plus, 90 plus, or whatever it is, we're going to be like limiting our sphere of influence, and the positive impact we're going to cause is smaller. We need to rethink our model and focus on being a coffee company. Why? Why did we do that? Because we do believe that there's a home for every coffee. That we do believe that every market desires or wants a coffee that is good for them. Now, we need to find the right people in those countries that really value the coffee that they like for what it is, and brings value to the chain all the way down to the producer. That's how, it's one of the ways we can actually change the industry moving forward. I think specialty did a fantastic job in bringing awareness to the growers and bringing awareness that there were better things in there and we needed to value it. It's time now for us to evolve from it and go back to the origin and say, we are coffee people. And that doesn't mean specialty versus commercial, and that doesn't mean specialty 90 plus versus specialty 80 plus or whatever. We are coffee people, and we need to look at it as a whole, because if we're segmenting it and continue to segment the whole industry, we are not going to achieve what we need to achieve, which is equality, equity, equality for everyone in the supply chain.
I mean, me as a producer, and I think the producers, it's very important they understand that they need to know how the coffee tastes and what are the job they're doing with the coffee. So me, I mean, I doesn't care if the cupper or the customer is an 83 or an 87. I just know the value of my coffee. I know how it costs to produce that coffee. So just give the number you want. I know the price I want for my coffee. I just need to have a sustainable coffee. I mean, to be able to pay it and to be able to feed my family, right?
Absolutely.
So if you know how to cup, if you know how your coffee tastes, I mean, doesn't matter how many points the rest of the people gave to your coffee. You already know that your coffee is good. Your coffee has a good process. Your coffee is a special coffee. So just try to reach as much as you can, but knowing the real price of your coffee.
No, absolutely. You feel it firsthand.
Yeah.
If you can produce 100 bags of coffee in your farm, and what would be the percentage of coffees there? There's 85 plus. 20% maybe if you're a very good farmer. If you have a good year with weather, you have less impact. You know, you were able to have a drier season to dry your coffee. Then you can have a little better success rate and a bigger percentage of really higher quality coffee in your property. But then you're left with 80% of your coffee that you need to get paid well for.
Yeah.
And if people don't value that, then you're going to sell it for below cost of production. How are we providing a sustainable future for coffee growers? We are not. No, we are not.
Yeah, we know all the production can be good. We know because we cap the production. We know we have some coffees that are not good, so we just sell the coffee in a different way. But all the coffees we think are a specialty coffee, we try to sell them on a good price, because we cannot sell the coffee which is bad or having any defects and wait for someone to pay more for that coffee. We need to be honest as well as a producer.
Mm-hmm.
So what is good and what is bad?
Absolutely. Last question, Paulo.
Yeah, actually, this is not a question. I think SCA is trying to solve exactly this with the new cupping form.
Yes, they are.
So with the hedonic evaluation. So I think that's the move, and kind of answering Anna's question as well. You know, like that's even the Q graders are moving to a better way of evaluating coffee based on what does this coffee taste, instead of like the score is not that much important anymore. Yeah.
That's a great point, and I'm going to make a promotion right now. Since you, like we say here, you know, Brazil is a big country, not only in soccer, for those of you that don't know, but in volleyball as well. So if you raise the ball, I'm going to spike it. So he raised the ball, I'm going to spike it now. Meaning, Ally Open is launching a podcast called Rooted in Coffee. And in that podcast, I think is our second episode, which is going to be launched this coming Monday. Stay tuned, listen up. We interviewed Yannis Apostopoulos from the SCA, the CEO of the SCA, and we are really digging in with him. What are they doing, right, Nick, to actually change this way of evaluating coffee? And why specialty coffee is much more than just a score. So stay tuned, listen up. I think that he brings in a lot of good insight for the industry. I think that we are, as a whole, we try to embrace and help them really push this forward, because I think it's definitely, they want to change as well, and they really need help from all of us to get to a good place so we can move forward as a whole, as an industry, and really define coffee in a different way, more like on a value base than just like a score base. And value means not just like a cupping score, it means like the relationship, it means like all this story behind the cup, and much more. So stay tuned, watch, listen. Rooted in Coffee will be launched on Monday. And if it's not launched on Monday, I think I'm going to kill Nick. No, I'm just joking. Well, thank you so much. Chris, want to say any final words?
I think everything I said is very good. I think just to illustrate a little bit about your question, 80% of our job is educate our clients. 20% is actually the sell. So it's a long journey, but you know, some people, they look for education, and some people, they don't want education. So you need to separate the good and the bad, and take time. That's it. Some people believe that the planet, it's not a cycle. So,
so true. Diego, any few words or any encouragement words?
Oh, no, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I'm really happy to see how Brazilians and all of you feel the same passion I have for coffee, and you've been for a couple of days, like listening to us talking about coffee, finding a way how to improve quality and sustainability in coffee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Diego. Julien?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Yeah, it's my first time at Origin in a coffee producing country, and I feel it's very special. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for talking with us.
Thank you so much. Felix?
Yeah, I can follow the words. I'm really happy to be here and to see and actually to taste these coffees. It's really a pleasure. And thanks for the audience to be here and for your interest and for your questions. So,
thank you very much. Well, time. Thank you, everyone. Now, if you are lucky enough to go back in there and get a coffee from any of those two champs, run. Thank you.